Hi guys, Ricky Pope here, and this week on the Christian Nerds Unite podcast, we're joined by Cal Jameson, writer and creator of Shinobi Sasquatch, co-host of Breaking Rad, and we talk about his upcoming graphic novel, Days of Noah, plus scripture and nerdy news, and we'll get to all of that right after this.
Hey guys, this is Ashley Cox from Fangirling Over Jesus. At FOJ, we believe in hope and light in the darkness and that you are not alone. We seek to unite and celebrate the intersection of the gospel and our favorite fandoms, and we get to do this through our social media, our podcast devotional, and our cosplay and fashion. And you can find links to all of that through our website, www.fangirlingoverjesus.com, through our social media at FangirlingOverJesus, wherever you get your podcasts, and on Etsy. See you online.
And lead me on to your kingdom come, surrendering, let your work be done. My life I give for the glory of your Son.
Thank you so much for joining me this week on the Christian Nerds Unite podcast. You guys are the reason that I do this every week, and we're also part of the Christian Nerd HQ podcast network. So make sure you go to christiannerdhq.com and follow all the podcasts there. We would really appreciate it. Now, let's read some scripture. Matthew 24, 34 through 39. Truly I tell you, this generation will certainly not pass away until all things have happened. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away. But about that day or hour no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be in the coming of the Son of Man. For in the days before the flood, people were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, up to the day Noah entered the ark. And they knew nothing about what would happen until the flood came and took them away. That is how it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. This and the passage right before it are fascinating and point at the second coming of Christ. Many will say they understand this and say that his coming is soon. Many have said that for many years as well, and I don't disagree, but soon is a relative term. But Jesus makes it clear here that even he doesn't know the day or time, and that it will be as in the days of Noah. Some imply this is a reference to how bad things were, but the passage is clearly referencing the idea that people were just doing normal things, going about their daily lives, eating, drinking, sleeping, working. It will be surprising. I pray that we will focus on the most important things as we await his return. And I would say the most important thing is Jesus' command to share the gospel and make disciples. And I pray that this week you'll consider who you can share the good news of Jesus with. Now for some nerdy news. Taylor Swift's concert movie stays in first place this past weekend at the domestic box office, adding $33 million for a new domestic total of $131 million, and worldwide, a total of $178 million. The new Martin Scorsese film, Killers of the Flower Moon, comes in second place, with $23 million domestically. The film follows the true story of a series of murders in the Osage Nation in the 1920s. The film has a runtime of 3 hours and 26 minutes, so it's super long. Expect this film to be in the Oscar contentions. The Exorcist Believer and Paw Patrol the Mighty Movie take third and fourth place, and the 30th anniversary release of The Nightmare Before Christmas rounds out the top 5. The Hollywood Reporter is saying that the Greg Weisman created Disney animated series Gargoyles from the 90s is in the works for a live-action revival. Gary Doberman and James Wan's Atomic Monster, that produced the Annabelle series, have been tapped to head up the new series. Doberman is set to write, executive produce, and serve as the showrunner for the series. For now, there's no new release date. In our interview today, Cal Jameson shares about his upcoming book, The Days of Noah, that he describes as Christian, Lovecraftian, monster hunting, horror comic. And we also talk about his thoughts on horror as something that the Bible uses to shine light on truth. Now, let's get right into our interview. Cal Jameson, it is great to have you on the Christian Nerd Unite podcast today.
That's great to be here, man. Thanks for inviting me.
For those who might be unfamiliar with you, you're a writer, you are on a podcast, and you've done quite a few different things you've been involved in lately. But tell us a little bit about the project that you're working on right now. I know it's called The Days of Noah. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Okay, so Days of Noah is we talked a little before stream how the things coming together seem a little bit incongruous. They don't really go together. It's Lovecraftian horror set in a distinctly Christian universe featuring real Christian characters with real Christian struggles. As a believer who's into pop culture and stuff, I know that you've probably seen these Christian portrayals from Hollywood, and it's like either they're usually awful, they're usually bigoted and rude and judgmental. I think of like Angela in The Office, also hypocritical, or they're just like perfect. Usually that's the exception, but they're just holy all the time, every day. There's nothing ever wrong. So I wanted to write something and do the art myself and just do the whole thing myself that was just overtly Christian, not preachy, you're not getting like a Romans Road gospel presentation every issue or anything, but it's just very unapologetically Christian. And the way the Lovecraft works in is a little interesting, but it actually tracks. If you look, if you read through the Bible and you read the description of angels, you've got these, you've these creatures with 6 wings and covered in eyes, and you go to Ezekiel and you've got the wheels and just the wheels covered in eyes, and they move this way and that way, and so you've got these angelic beings that kind of fit the description of cosmic horror if you put them in that context. Now these are holy and good beings, but imagine if they fell and became evil. What might their appearance look like? And in the Bible, whenever someone comes across an angel, face down, they're always just like, oh man, this is crazy. And so I'm like, this meshes with Lovecraft. The difference is Lovecraft's universe is distinctly anti-Christian, because in Lovecraft's universe, we're all part of the dream of an elder god that if he wakes up, we all just cease to exist. So in Days of Noah, all of these gods are actually false gods. Just like Dagon. Lovecraft used Dagon. Dagon's a god in the Bible, and so Dagon, Molech, Baal, Ash, all these false gods. Bring those into Days of Noah, and a lot of them are portraying themselves as these cosmic horror entities, and so that's where the Lovecraft comes in. And so it's not true fans of Lovecraft to be like, that's not Lovecraft anymore. Well, that's fine. Doesn't have to be, because I'm trying to glorify God with what I'm doing in Lovecraft, and I love Lovecraft, but doesn't glorify God.
Right.
Kind of anti that, but yeah. And some other influences, just tag it on to the end. X-Files, Supernatural, all these awesome Monster of the Week, programs and stuff out there. All that stuff goes in. Hellboy, all that stuff goes into this book. It's kind of a culmination of like everything I love, but with Christ at the center. There's my pitch.
Very cool. Well, so when you say Days of Noah, my first thought was, we're talking about a biblical epic kind of book, but that's obviously not what we're talking about. So is this more of a modern setting? Where did the name come from?
Okay, so the name is kind of twofold. So number one, the protagonist is named Noah. That's secondary. I decided to name
Mhm.
him Noah just because it makes sense. The book's called Days of Noah. Let's name the protagonist Noah. But I'm kind of vamping on, when Jesus said, the end times will be as it was in the days of Noah.
Mm,
And
okay.
I'm part of like this Christian, fringe Christian, Orthodox but fringe Christian community where we kind of tear into Genesis 6, get the Book of Enoch, all that stuff. So the Nephilim, all that
Yeah.
is a big part of my study, and the kind of endeavors I get into when it comes to like reading and really learning about things nowadays. Because I've
Hmm.
gone through theology, Bible school, like that stuff doesn't bore me, but it's like I want to get into the weird stuff in the Bible that we don't talk about much. You
Mm,
know,
okay.
like when Jude says, that Satan and Michael fought over the body of Moses. Like, what is that about? So that's kind of where I'm at. So Days of Noah kind of plays on that, and I'm kind of marketing towards that community because we don't have
Okay.
really anything like Days of Noah. We have novels, um,
Hmm.
and my new buddy Brandon Hollingsworth, who does,
Oh yeah, yeah,
Brandon. Okay,
yeah.
he
Brandon's actually been on the show before.
Oh, good. Yeah, he does something. He does novels or novellas, and I think comics of a character named Tenet, who is like
Hmm.
a
Yeah.
fallen angel, but who decides to be good. So it's kind of in that category. But this will be as far as I know, the first like distinctly Christian um, horror kind of thing that really tackles the Nephilim situation in the modern day. And so like werewolves, vampires, name a monster. Black-eyed
Hmm.
kids is kind of features on the first few pages of Days of Noah. They're all genetic experiments down through the centuries of the fallen angels and then the Nephilim kind of taking over these half breeds that are half angel, half human, kind of taking over and using the knowledge from the fallen angels, to manipulate the genetic information, um, to create hybrids, chimeras, mixtures between not just angels and humans, but animals and insects and fish and like tree plants even. Like if in the Book of Enoch, there's like this whole thread of like, well, the way that humans learned about metallurgy and
Mm.
cosmetics, all that stuff was from the Watchers, who were these angels who decided to have sex with human women. And so, yeah, I'm bringing that all into Days of Noah. That's kind of like when Jesus said, "Hey, it'll be like the Days of Noah." I'm taking that very literally, and it'll be so. Though our world is kind of secretly just teeming with Nephilim, and then yeah. I'll just stop there.
No, that's
I'll let
good
you
stuff.
ask questions because I'm just jabbering.
No, that's good stuff. You should check out Brian Godawa's stuff.
Oh, I love Brian Godawa. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's great.
yeah. Brian's been on the show, actually working on trying to get him back on the show because he has a new book out, coming
Yeah,
out.
he's
So
great.
yeah, Brian's a great guy. So so now you said you're working on the art as well. Now, is this going to be a comic book? Is this a graphic novel? Is this something else? What exactly is it?
So my first installment will be a single kind of floppy length, 24-ish pages,
Hmm.
of kind of an introduction to not just the Days of Noah, but to the whole universe. Because I have
Mm,
5 or 6 more IPs already developed, world built, character developed, storylines and arcs written and everything. And so Noah and Days of Noah is kind of an introduction into that whole universe. And what that's going to be is a free digital comic for all the backers of my first comic campaign, Shinobi Sasquatch. It's a little late. and trying to throw some trying to gain back some favor by giving some more free stuff. So everyone's going to get. I can't afford to give out free physical copies, but everyone's going to get a free digital copy.
Mm.
So anyone who backed Shinobi Sasquatch in the past or in the future, don't back it yet because I want to get a good ETA. But they will also get whenever Days of Noah is finished, they'll get that digital comic right away. So it won't be.
Okay.
They won't. You have to wait. Don't have to wait till Shinobi Sasquatch ships. You'll get something in the meantime that you can read. Art is nowhere near as good as Shinobi Sasquatch because I'm about just under 4 months drawing. Uh, I drew as a young man, and I've doodled a little bit over the years, but like like saying, okay, I'm going to be an artist. I'm going to draw now every day. It's been a little under 4 months, I think,
Mm.
and so I'm evolving and I'm leveling up, but um, I'm sure that the early pages that I'm working on I'll want to completely redraw those. And so
Mm.
it'll take a little time to finish the book, but that's my plan is to give that free initially to all my backers. And if someone wants it, that's not a backer of Shinobi Sasquatch, I'm sure I can make that happen. And then, but if I get enough traction from that, then I can actually um, start doing, a regular. Man, I don't know if I'm fast enough to do like a monthly comic, but
Mm.
every 2-3 months, put one out, and I just love doing it. So I don't even the money is kind of like, I mean, to reimburse me for my time a little bit, maybe, but I really just kind of want to get my stories out there. So I'm not even
Mm.
super concerned about price point or being published through a comic publisher or anything.
Okay.
I want to get these stories out, man. I just want to tell them.
Awesome. Well, how did you get involved in this idea? Not necessarily in Noah, the Days of Noah, but just in you've got a story that you want to tell that you wanted to be the artist of. How did you get involved in that world?
Oh man. Well, initially it was in the '90s. Image Comics was
Okay.
really
Yep.
big. I was going to the comic shop to pick up like role playing game books. I'm wearing a Run D&D shirt. I love tabletop role playing games, and so I was going to pick up dice or a book or something, and I saw Spawn, and I'm like, whoa, that looks cool. I didn't care about like Superman and Wonder Woman. Like none of that
Mm.
stuff really interested me, but Spawn,
Mm.
like wow, anti-hero horror mixed with superhero, that really got like spoke to me. So that got me into comics, and
Mm.
I wanted to be a comic artist slash writer back then, but I did not have the patience to learn to be an artist. Now I have an iPad, and all my mistakes get erased with 2 finger tap. So it's a different world we live in. So that kind of gave me my initial love. I'm like, okay, I want to tell stories in picture form.
Mm.
But then I became a Christian. Well, I was a Christian, but I kind of got back in touch with my faith. Got into music and became a worship leader. And then my career for the past 20 plus years has been a worship pastor. So
Mm.
I've kind of, I kind of like left art, in the dust. I was just like, well, I'm not really good at it anyway. And writing, I didn't care about writing. I write devotional materials, but like telling stories wasn't big on my radar.
Mm.
But about a decade ago, I got back in touch with a friend of mine who we were into comics together in the '90s and early 2000s, and we were like, hey, let's write screenplays and try and like be Hollywood screenwriters. And then we realized really fast how that's just impossible unless you live in LA. And you have to like know people, and so
Mm.
I'm like, well, so went through an evolution. Okay, well instead let's do like short videos and put them on the internet. And so I would write scripts for stuff that would be low production cost, um, and we do table reads with people who wanted to be actors or
Mm.
who at least could do stand in for one.
Yeah.
That fizzled out. Started writing novels. I'm not great at long form prose. And then we circled back around to comics. And I was like, oh, let's just do comics, man. That's the best way to tell stories. It's pictures and words, and people read in, take the story in at their own pace. And so that started, like I said, about a decade ago. And so for 10 years, I've kind of been building worlds and writing story arcs and creating characters and not putting anything out. And so so now, yeah, I'm at the point where it's like, well, I'm just going to be the artist myself, and I'm just going to do everything. I'm just going to write art, do the lettering, because I'm a letterer too. So like writing came first, and then I got into lettering, and I really enjoy lettering comics and making sure that the lettering is high quality along with the art. And then
Mm.
art kind of came last. I'm like, oh, maybe I'll just do art too, and it's just been turning out okay so far. I'm enjoying it.
Very cool. Well, now you also have a podcast. I guess is it a audio podcast, or is it only a YouTube channel?
Yeah, it's just YouTube now. I think we do
Okay.
want to podcast at some point, but yeah, it's just YouTube now.
So how did, and that's called Breaking Rad.
Mhm.
And so how did that all begin? Because I know that kind of revolves around this whole comic book idea as well, right?
Yeah, yeah. I met the other hosts, Macho Dan, Muttman, and 6 a.m. Comics. That's all their handles. Obviously, their online handles. I don't think parents would name their kids 6 a.m. Comics unless they have just amazing prescience. Like, I know this kid is going to draw comic books. We met a few years ago. We were part of a movement, kind of a counter culture movement called Comicsgate. That was kind of saying, "Hey, I don't really like the direction of comics now. We have politics invading our stories. We
Mm.
have, you know, several decades old beloved characters who are being hijacked and being used as mouthpieces for certain political ideology." And so we're like, we were all part of this little Comicsgate thing that was just trying to do something different, trying to say, hey, let's just make entertainment and not be
Mhm.
preachy, one side or the other. Let's just tell stories that entertain and have good art. And
Mm.
so we were kind of around to at the beginning of that movement, and wherever it is now, I mean, we're still kind of around, hanging out and stuff. But but that kind of got us to into this mentality of, hey, let's do YouTube. Let's get together and just hang out and talk
Mm.
and not do drama stuff. There's a lot of drama streams out there. If people like that, you go check it out. But we're like, we just
A
want to
lot
be,
of hate watching right now going on.
yeah. So we just want to kind of, I mean, we gripe about stuff too, but we just kind of want to be just have fun, be positive. We don't want to create negative emotions in people, and we just want
Mm.
to chill and hang out and talk about comics and making comics, reading comics, and then just pop culture in general. Like uh, TV shows we like, movies, video games, tabletops, whatever. Anything that's in that pop culture realm. We all kind of have
Mm.
our own little niches. Some of the guys are really into pro wrestling, and so we did we did events called CGWE, so Comicsgate Wrestling Entertainment or something like that, where Mark 6 a.m. Comics would play a wrestling game, a WWE wrestling game. He would create the characters like based on the people, comic creators in the community, and then he would just let the game play and fight each other. And we our biggest videos have been these CGWE events where we really, it's just people watching a video game play itself, and then the guys commenting on it like they're actually commentators at a wrestling event. And so we've got, I mean, it's easily our biggest one of those is easily 10 times the views of anything else we do. People just loved it, but it's a lot of work for Mark to make those.
Oh, I bet.
And so anyway, yeah, so that's kind of where we're at now. But yeah, we just to go back to the beginning, we're just Christian dads who are like, hey, oh, you're a Christian too? Cool. I know this other guy who's a Christian, and we should all hang out and talk. And yeah, so it started pretty simply, like, let's fellowship, let's hang out.
So when you are, in the middle, obviously a lot of your stuff that you're working on is faith based, or as one of my friends calls it, faith adjacent.
Right.
So a lot of your stuff falls into that. How do you think your faith plays into the creative things that you do?
It's a good question. Yeah, I actually just wrote a devotional for my team. For anyone watching it, if I didn't mention, I'm a worship pastor, um, and I write devotionals each week for my ministry. And
Mm,
I this week I was talking about this subject of there's two things that shape kind of how you react to reality, to what's happening.
mm,
And one of those things is your worldview, and the other is your perspective. And
mm,
your perspective is influenced by your worldview, like what you know, but it's also influenced by your emotions, right? So that's kind of the whole devotional thing. But staying on the worldview side, um, I think whatever your worldview is, it's going to seep out into anything you create. And
mm,
and if it doesn't, then you probably don't hold tight enough to it.
mm,
If you're a Christian, um, and when you create, it's just godless and um, uh, hopeless, you probably need to zero back in on Christ a little bit.
mm,
Like I know some people are like, oh man, I hate stories of happy endings. It's not realistic. And it's like, well, that's not why we write stories, though. We want people to have escapism makes them feel good. You know.
mhm.
Um, and I know not everyone agrees. Some people just really like feeling crappy when they watch stuff. I don't know. But for me, uh, I think, yeah, if you know Jesus and you love Jesus, and you stand on the Word of God and the morality that comes from it, that's kind of going to come out in what you create. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, for me, I haven't been super overt over the years, in making my stories overtly Christian. Um, but that morality is kind of always in there,
Mm.
and um, I don't think you can get away from it. I don't think you even need to try. If you hold tight to your worldview, I think it's just going to happen. You know.
Nice. Now you got into you said this earlier. You got into art, into drawing,
Hmm.
fairly recently, and is what made you decide, you know, this is what I need to do this right now, and what does that process look like? I know you said a little bit about you probably are going to want to go redraw all the stuff you drew at the beginning, but
Yeah.
what was it like for you deciding, okay, I'm writing these stories, it's time for me to start drawing these stories now.
Yeah. I don't know if it was like at the front of my mind, but having to, one, pay an artist. And I work. I mean, I'm a minister's salary here. I'm not rolling in money. Um, so having to pay an artist, and the artists definitely deserve to be paid. Don't get me
Mm.
wrong. Like,
Oh yeah.
what art is, it takes so much longer than writing. For instance, writing and drawing an ash can called Gator Roy, which we can talk about if you want later. But um, I had 3 pages of script written, I think, and I started drawing them, and I got to the third page, and several hours later, the first page is finished, and I'd drawn 2 more pages, just layouts, just blue pencil layouts. And I thought, oh man, I need more story. And I went to the script, and 20 minutes later, I had 2 more pages of script. Those 2 pages will take many hours for me to draw. Probably better artists, well, they'll be a lot quicker. But um, so anyway, so so that idea of paying artists, they deserve their pay, but I don't have money. So I'm like, okay, I have that, but also relying on someone else to help you make your thing happen.
Mm,
Some people are reliable, and other people are not, and other people
mm,
are wavering in the middle. Obviously, my first comic did really well on Indiegogo, and it's several years later, 3, 4 years later right now, and it's still not out.
Mm.
And so I'm just kind of, like I said, I don't know if this was the fore of my mind, but I think that it definitely played into me sitting down and picking up a drawing pad and a pencil and feeling like, hey, I want to doodle today. I want to doodle some stuff. And I realized the more that I was doing that, kind of just drawing every day, um, I was improving, and I'm going, oh man, this is I feel like I might actually have a talent. I thought I didn't, but God is good, and He gives gifts where He wants them to go, and I was kind of realizing actually I do have a talent. Like the shapes are starting to come, and so then I got an iPad, and um, it's been crazy since then because I just draw every day, and when I make mistakes, I just double finger tap, and the mistake goes away. If I draw the head too far down, I just circle it and twist it and put it in. It's where it goes. So I mean, I think I think like real artists would probably go, "Oh man, he's cheating so much. He's like totally cheating." I don't care. I just want to tell good stories, and I want good art to go with it. And I don't care if I'm cutting corners in terms of my process, my learning process.
Mm,
So I'm not going to take 2 years to learn anatomy. Instead,
mm,
I'm going to come up with a panel, and if there's a pose and I can't make it happen from my imagination, and I'll just search on the internet and I'll find a pose and I'll look at it and I'll draw it a couple times. And so that's the process for me, is really trial and error. And that's why some of the
mm,
pages take so long, is I'm kind of laying it out, and then I'm later when I go back to ink it, it's inking what I have, and if that looks crappy, then finding something on the internet. Like what what is a guy swimming upward look like? That actually came from my imagination in a recent page, but if I had to, I'd look that up. So anyway, yeah, that's the process, man. It's just like drawing crappy a bunch, and then finally something good comes out.
Well, I know you mentioned Image Comics earlier, so I'll just advise you right now: don't look to Rob Liefeld for drawing feet. Just
Nope.
avoid that. Just
Staying away
avoid
from
that
the
completely.
Liefeld feet.
Yeah, stay away from Liefeld's feet. If you can't figure out how to draw feet, just cut them off at the knees on the frame in the picture, and you don't have
Oh
to worry
yeah.
about the feet.
Yep. Did that just recently. I'm actually getting pretty okay at drawing feet. Like cartoony, not fully cartoony, but not fully realistic feet, somewhere in the middle. But there's an image of Noah from Days of Noah fighting this big Lovecraftian monster. That's on my Twitter account if you guys want to go check, or X account if you want to check it out. But I could not get the feet the way I wanted them. So yeah, I did exactly what you said. There's smoke and stuff, and his feet just disappear into the smoke, and so we're good now. Yeah, I hear you on the Liefeld
That's
thing.
the Bob Ross approach. That's not a mistake. We're just going to turn that into a happy little bird.
Hmm. Yep, I use a lot of that.
uh well, now you guys over at Breaking Rad, you guys came up with kind of your own little superhero team recently, or not too long ago, I guess.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about that. You guys called them the Drifters.
Yeah. Okay. So this started. I think it was a couple years ago when Marvel came out with a super team called the New Warriors. And just to give you an idea of what this team is like, one of them got his power from internet gas. There's a pair of siblings. I think they're twins named Safe Space, and I can't remember the other one. One of them is non-binary. There's an obese member of the team. Now we have the Blob in comics, and that's great. But this is my point: is this team was like very specifically crafted one by
Mm.
one to just be inclusive. And
Mm.
I'm all for uh, organic inclusivity, like
Hmm.
creating a world that's populated with real people. But
Hmm.
we're talking about a super team that fights crime on the super level. And so we're looking at this team going, this is just kind of pitiful and awful. And I don't think it even got published because no one wanted it. But there was promo stuff out for it, right? So
Mm.
we're like, hey, let's do a stream and let's just create a better team, just live on stream, just create a better super team. And so it was kind of a joke, like, I mean, we knew we could because that's an awful team, but like we didn't expect to do anything with it. And then we crafted this team live on stream, and the stream ended, and we're like, man, this is a cool team. Like we've got, there's nothing really new under the sun, but
Hmm.
we created iterations of things that are out there. Like for instance, we have a character who when you look at the art, you go, oh, that's really similar to like Swamp Thing or Man Thing. It's this character named Cezanne, which is like French for season.
Okay.
But the thing that makes it an offshoot or an iteration, it's not exactly like those things. Is she's from outer space. She's from another planet or something, and her kind of like how when Superman comes to Earth, our yellow sun affects him and gives him powers. Her race,
Mm.
when they come to Earth, the seasons affect them, and they actually cause them to go through a cycle. So each season affects their physical body, but also their powers. And so
Mm.
in the winter, for instance, she becomes very emaciated, and her powers kind of revolve around sucking energy and life force. And then until at
Okay.
the end of winter, she actually kind of crumbles into a pile of ash, and all that's left is a skull.
Mm.
But that skull, as the spring begins, that skull becomes encased with vegetation, vines and roots and things, and then it grows into this swamp thingish creature that kind of has her old skull, her old form skull, as its
Okay.
head. But then there's a big amber like pod right in the midsection, and she's gestating inside it, and so she's becoming a new version of her. And as it gets closer and closer to summer, that pod becomes hotter and hotter, and she burns out of it and becomes kind of like um, a heat based kind of a fairy-ish version of herself. So that's a long way to say she is kind of Swamp Thing-ish in the spring, but throughout the year she's different things, and so all of our
Interesting.
characters kind of have that same. Like we have a character that's kind of similar to Deadman, in that he's a ghost, but he's
Okay.
attached to a Japanese oni mask. He got cursed because when he was in Japan, he peed into on a tour. He peed into like like kind of like a holy relic, like a bucket or something, or like a vase. But it was like it contained like the bones of a well, I don't know. I don't know if we have like have that locked in, but whatever it was, it cursed him. So he got sucked into this oni mask that was hanging on the wall, and so now he's attached to this mask, and so you see this mask kind of flying around, but if he wants to have a body, he has to inhabit um, a dead body. So sometimes
Mm.
it's a skeleton, sometimes it's a corpse. In rare occasions, he can inhabit an unconscious person, but we don't have him like possessing people, like living people
Mm.
as a rule. So anyway, so that's our super team, and we loved it so much. We're like, let's freaking go with this thing, man. It's a cool team. So we've been developing those characters in that world for the past couple of years. We have a script that's for the first issue that's kind of about halfway done. And then, like you mentioned, we have an Ashcan that's going to go with the book called Gator Roy. It's another
Mm.
character we created live on stream. He's a guy who happened upon angel armor, but it was in the form of clothes. Um, on the beach, he's walking along the beach, and there's like a pile of clothes. There's a pair of British Knight shoes. I actually changed it to Spanish Caballero, because I don't want to use real brands.
Yeah.
But he's like, hey, man, I found some clothes, sweet, and he takes these clothes and he puts them on, and he finds in the pocket a butterfly knife, and he's flipping it around, and a flaming sword comes out. He's like, what the heck? And it like flies out into the ocean or into the lake. And anyway, that's I won't go into the story of the book, but so he becomes a superhero by accident by getting possession of angel armor and weapon. And so he kind of stole it, and so the Ashcan's going to be a little bit of a redemption arc for this character that no one even knows who he is, but you have in the first couple pages, you kind of know, you get the idea that he's not a very selfless guy. And so that first issue is going to be kind of an emotional journey for him, spiritual journey. And yes, Drifters. It's going to be great. Look for it.
Very cool. Well, kind of wrap us back to the beginning again. So the days of Noah, we're recording early. This probably won't hit until October. So Days of Noah, you said it's going to have a lot of horror elements. And one thing that I have always been super interested in is this idea of, should there be Christian horror? And it sounds like I have a good idea of what your opinion there is, but how would you lay that out for somebody? How would you pitch the idea that Christian horror makes sense, that it's something that should be?
Yeah, that's a great question, man. And you mentioned earlier, I don't know if it was on or off recording, Brian Godawa. So I'm just going to tell people ahead of time, for a really good take on this, look for Brian Godawa's. He wrote a short article about using horror as a biblical genre, or that horror is a biblical genre, and so it's okay for us to use it now. And before I give you my pastor answer, I do want to shed light on a lot of people, if they don't follow like screenwriting, like the process of creating film. But in Hollywood, there's a formula called MITH, M-I-T-H, for writing horror movies, and it stands for Monster in the House. And what goes into that is 3 elements. And one is there's a monster, second there's a house, and the third there's a sin. The monster can be a monster or not a monster. It can be a human. It can be a force of nature like a tornado. It can be a shark, as in Jaws. The house can be a house, like in a haunted house movie, or it can be the beach in the movie Jaws.
Okay.
The sin is always a sin. It's almost always the hubris of man. It's almost always man being self-centered. And that is, if you just pick a random horror movie over the past 40 years or longer. I don't know how long that formula has been in place, but and you're going to find those elements pretty common in most horror movies. And I find it interesting that Hollywood uses sin as one of their main ingredients for a horror movie. Why does man suffer in these movies? Because they're evil at their heart. Man is flawed. We have a sin nature. And so that takes us back to the Bible, and the Bible is full of horror as a genre. Right in the very beginning, you have right towards the beginning. It's 2,000 years into the history of man, but you have an angry deity destroying all of humanity, all of the animals on the planet. And if you're thinking that's not horror, no, that's horrific. We all think of like Noah's Ark with all the animals and it's a floating zoo. No, this is people and animals drowning worldwide, getting stuck in mudslides, and this is horrific. Okay, and so that right at the very beginning of the Bible, you have Cain and Abel. You have a brother killing his brother because of envy, and you have God saying, the voice of your brother, the blood of your brother cries from the ground. And you move along through the Bible, and you've got, I don't remember the names in the story, but you've got you've got a man cutting his daughter into pieces and mailing her body parts across the country as a warning.
Mm.
Like someone killed. I think it's when I think they violated and killed her, and so there's this weird FedEx thing going on where body parts are going all over the nation. Uh, the tent spike Jael and the tent spike through the king's head. You've got horror throughout the entire Bible, and it's illustrating the very same thing we just talked about. That man is sinful, and that's why
Mm.
bad things happen. And it's go back to Job. I'm not saying that if you go through a hard time, it's because you're sinning.
Mm-hmm.
It's because there is a fall where mankind rebelled against their God, and we have all inherited a sin nature. And unfortunately, we've also inherited the ramifications of other people's sin. When other people do bad things, we suffer. So anyway, that's my quick pitch. I think horror is, number one, it's a biblical genre that magnifies the extreme, as Paul would say, the extreme sinfulness of sin. It shows you how truly awful and horrific sin is, and moving that out of the Bible and into our literature that we create, our stories that we tell. I think it's only natural. Where I would say we as Christians should draw a line is gratuity. Don't We shouldn't create horror for the sake of horror. We shouldn't create I think of torture porn as a genre. Saw, Hostel, these kind of movies. I don't enjoy them because they exist. And yes, you can probably find a moral in those stories, but it's almost like they exist to glorify the horror itself, the gore, the blood drawing, so to speak. So I would say, as Christians, we have to definitely tread a precarious line there, and not overindulging as writers and artists in the darker side, and make sure that we're using horror to shine light on truth, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But look up Brian Godowa, you guys. He does it better than I do.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. And for that, on that gratuitous side, honestly, I'm kind of an odd duck on this, because I don't enjoy horror as a genre very much. But I enjoy things like Alien, and,
right.
Which was kind of a horror movie set in space of sorts. But there are ways to have horrific ideas portrayed where you don't have to actually show them.
Right. Yeah.
So, there are creative ways to present the subject. And so I think it's something that's, that is it's an interesting subject for me to talk about. And, with this coming out around, October, in the middle of Halloween month, I thought that would be kind of interesting idea to talk about. Well, Cal, do you have kind of a target date for Days of Noah, or is it just going to be when it's ready?
Yeah, I would love to put a date on it, but so, like, for instance, if I were to just go by how long it took me to draw the first 3 pages, it took me about a week to do 3 pages, which is really good, until you realize how basic my art is compared to some other art out there. But I've since gone back and redrawn 2 of the panels on the first page, and like I said earlier, I have a sense that I'm going to do that a lot. When I get to page 10, I think I'm probably going to go back and redraw stuff in pages 3, 4, and 5, and so I just want it to be as good as it can be when it's done. And so I will say it will be before Shinobi Sasquatch ships, because I've hired an artist to help, a guy named Chris Graves, who's amazing, to help us finish the book. And he's starting in October. He's going to do 2 pages in October. But at present, I can only afford to pay him generally for 1 page a month. So it's
Mm.
still, Shinobi Sasquatch is still a ways out. We still have almost 60 pages left to do. Times that, you figure that out, 1 page a month, it's still a while. I hate to say it. And if my wife and I get big raises sometime before then, and I can go up to 2 or 3 pages a month, I will totally do it. It's worth it to me to make my backers happy, to just pay out of pocket for an artist. But that all being said, Days of Noah is being drawn on the side by me, not Chris Graves or Rob Willis.
Right.
And so my goal to get that out would be, I would say, I can, I think I could pretty safely say within a year. I'll have it done
Mm.
within a year. It could be 3 months if I just get really fast, but probably not. I think 6 months is probably kind of a safe-ish bet, but
Mm.
I'm gonna just on the record say by next October it'll be done completely, and I'll leave it there.
Very cool. Well, when you're ready to release it out into the world, definitely let me know. We'll have you back on the show.
Oh yeah.
We'll show it off. Well, so Cal, real quick, tell the audience, where can they find you? How can they follow you if they want to keep up with what's going on with you?
Yeah. Well, on Twitter or X is probably the best place to find me. My handle is just my name backwards, Jameson Cal. You can also find me on Instagram, and it's Cal the Scribe. So Instagram.com, Cal, the word the, and the word scribe. That's before I decided to be an artist. I'm posting a lot of art, mainly on Instagram. I post most of it on X, but mostly I'm posting on Instagram. And so you can find me those two places. Also, check out Breaking Rad on YouTube and Rumble. We'd prefer you watch us on Rumble. And it's just search Breaking Rad, and I think we're like the first thing that comes up. We have a live stream every Tuesday at 9:30 Eastern time, and then we have various shorts and things that go out throughout each week. Drawing, time lapse, clips from our live stream, stuff like that. But we were talking about this earlier. Our niche is not really a niche. We're just Christian. We're nerdy Christian dads, and if you're a nerdy Christian man, even a woman, we have some female viewers, you might just like to come and hang out and listen to us talk and get involved in chat. And sometimes we create super teams that will be comic books someday. So come hang out with us.
Awesome. Well, I'll put links down to all that in the show notes. Cal, it has been great having you on the show today.
Yeah, it's been awesome, man. Love it.
It was great getting to know Cal and hear about his current project. If you're interested in following Cal and his work, check out the links in the show notes down below. Well, that's all I have for you today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, just click all those buttons down there. That way you can keep up with us anytime we put out new content. You can find all of our social links and links to our YouTube channel and to our online store at ChristianNerdUnite.com. If you enjoy the show and want to help even more, consider becoming a supporter on Patreon. All of our Patreon levels have great benefits and make a huge difference in the ministry we're able to do. Supporters will also get to hear exclusive stories of believers we are serving around the world through our ministry partners. To check it out or to partner with us, go to patreon.com/Christian Nerds Unite or ChristianNerdsUnite.com and click support in the menu. And don't forget to check out ChristianNerdHQ.com for more great podcasts. Before you go, I do want to leave you with this blessing from Hebrews 13. Now may the God of peace, who through the blood of the eternal covenant brought back from the dead our Lord Jesus, that great shepherd of the sheep, equip you with everything good for doing his will, and may he work in us what is pleasing to him through Jesus Christ, to whom be glory forever and ever. Amen. We'll see you next week. Blessings.
Hey.